Hi everyone. Very good afternoon and a warm welcome to everyone present here. DERBI Foundation, in partnership with Mouser, is organizing Tech Talk 3 series, which is on IoT and digital healthcare. We have Dr. Manoj Kumar here with us today as a speaker. So he'll be speaking with us on topic IoT and digital healthcare. Hearty welcome, sir. Uh, Before I hand over the session to him, I would like to give a small brief about Dr. Manoj. Dr. Manoj Kumar is the Director SRA Innovation and Collaborations APAC. Dr. Kumar is managing the System Applications and Integration Lab of the SRA with global mission to build and support reference designs, software, and system solutions in the areas of connectivity, EV charging stations, energy efficiency, and IoT. He is supporting ST's initiative of scouting for external innovations in Asia Pacific region. In this mission, he works with local ST organization and key stakeholders to collaborate with R&D houses, startups, and universities to connect these to relevant R&D organizations and business divisions of ST. Dr. Kumar leads ST Partner Program in India with a mission to provide global visibility to Indian partner companies. He is also driving STMicroelectronics STEM initiative for ST India. He is driving ST India in-house incubation program for startups and is responsible for collaborations with other incubators and research centers. He is based out of Greater Noida, India, and has been with ST Microelectronics since 1999. Thank you, sir. And dear participants, so we'll hand over the floor to Dr. Manoj Kumar now. So I request so that we could take up the question and answers Q&As in the end. You can probably post it on the chat box. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hearty welcome. Thank you for joining us for the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Bhavani, and good afternoon to all. So I'm very, very pleased to speak on this occasion, which is Mouser and DERBI organized. And of course, as ST Microelectronics, we are pleased to participate in this event. Is my audio clear? Just one confirmation.
Yes, sir, it's clear.
All right. So let me share my screen and my presentation, and then I will continue. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. So good afternoon again. The topic that I have chosen is IoT and digital healthcare. IoT, I believe we are pretty familiar now, Internet of Things. And the other one is digital healthcare, because IoT itself being digital, it's an interesting way to look at the enablement of healthcare through digital means. I have organized my presentation in following sections. I will speak a little bit about my company, ST Microelectronics. Then I will go into the second part, which is how ST is looking at the ecosystem of IoT. And then the major section is what ST is doing in digital healthcare. And here the idea is to share with you the philosophy, the examples of some of the end devices which are powered by ST, and then some innovations that are there from ST in the medical applications. And when I will talk about innovations, I would also be talking about some of the technologies that ST has and the way they can enable the end systems. I will speak again there, but just a comment that ST is a semiconductor company. We do not enter into the end systems, but we do enable the entire ecosystem. So that is the context of this presentation. So I would be speaking about many healthcare systems, knowing very well that we only enable the partners, the ecosystem, and so on. Towards the end, I hope that there would be some people who are from the startups, from the entrepreneurship background, or who would like to collaborate. So we would be able to discuss those possibilities as well. So my presentation is not particularly the product pitch. It is about the ideas, how we can share the ideas, particularly with respect to the collaboration that we may have. All right, at any point, if there is any issue to hear me, please send something on chat. I will try to see, or call me on my phone. Well, STMicroelectronics is one of the few companies in the world which are having their own design and manufacturing facilities. We call them as IDMs. Our revenues in 2020 are more than $10 billion, and for 2021, it should be out in January, but it is certainly more than this. This is all we know based on the previously published 3-quarter results. We have more than 8,000 people in R&D, and good point is that more than 10% of its R&D workforce is based in India. Another highlight, and to me is very, very important one, that ST is one of the very, very focused and sustainable companies. We happen to be the signatories of UNGC, which is largest sustainability initiative of the organizations in the world. And likewise, we are also member of the RBA, and RBA is same as what used to be EICC, that is Code of Conduct or Electronic Industry Code of Conduct earlier. So we are proud that we are part of UNGC and RBA. What it means is that if we are doing business, then any of the partners that we are working with, they must be following all the rules of integrity, the labor norms, and everything in each of the countries that we operate. So what is our strategy? So we have 3 main focus areas, and these focus areas, call them smart mobility, power and energy, or IoT and 5G. These are not chosen because these are very, very interesting words in the world today. In fact, our product portfolio for last 30 years or even more is something that is corresponding to these areas already. Let's talk of smart mobility. When we talk of smart mobility, today we have mainly the ICE, or let's say the combustion engine cars. Of course, the electric cars are starting now, but even in the combustion engine cars, there is multimedia, there is GPS, there is, call it, you have, let's say, all kind of electronic system. You have power windows, you have the near field controllers. So all these systems are actually, or the engine control, the management, these are coming from the electronic side. And as ST, we are present into most of these automotive families. And now with the movement going from internal combustion engines to electric engines, it starts to become even more interesting for what concerns electronics, the wide bandgap devices, and their efficiency. And in fact, that takes us to the second one, which is power and energy. And here our technology and solutions, particularly the silicon carbide and gallium nitride, are something that are helping us a lot. Also look at the renewable part, and also what I was saying, that we believe in the UNGC, or the Sustainability Development Goals of United Nations, and we aim to be carbon neutral very soon. In fact, 2026 is the date that we have set for ourselves. Coming to the topic of today's presentation, which is IoT and 5G, we provide sensors, embedded processing solutions, connectivity, security, and power management. In fact, any IoT system that you look at, it comprises of few common elements. That is, there is some sensor, that sensed data is being processed data is being communicated, and underlying these 3 main verticals is, are we sending this data in secure manner? And another one, if the IoT device is whether wall powered or battery powered, are we able to take care of the power management? So these are the 5 things, and our product portfolio since years actually suits already all these verticals. So key point here is that these are the great things in the world today, and our product portfolio already fits that into these segments in a very natural manner. Continuing to IoT and 5G, we know that there are large scale deployments of IoT already. Good point is that by 2026, there would be there are projections that there would be more than, let's say, like 100 million new 5G IoT connections. It is 5G IoT connections, not the IoT ones, because we have billions of IoT connections even today. And that brings the focus into IoT plus 5G, and we have actually technologies and products that support this. let me focus on ready-to-go ecosystem for IoT innovators. If there would be any questions in between, please send on chat. I hope I would be getting some prompt if there is some question in the chat. So as ST, as I said, that we have three focus areas: smart mobility, power and energy, and IoT and 5G. And the focus henceafter would be IoT, and in another section, it will be digital healthcare. So as I said before, that any IoT system would have these five underlining requirements, that is data acquisition or sensors, processing of this data, that is microcontroller or microprocessors, sending this in secure manner and then connecting it to the server if it is required to be connected. And then what is not visible in this, but is underlining this, is the power management. And it is important to understand that these elements could be standalone elements, but there could also be the application specific standard products. That means all of these could be combined into a single SoC, and we would see examples little later. Now, we are familiar with IoT devices. In fact, we can say that a connected car is an IoT device. You can say your computer is an IoT device. The meter is an IoT device. Your Fitbit or your wristband is an IoT device as well. You see, their form factors are different. Their functions are different. Their requirements on power management are different. Their requirements on security are different. Yet, this difference, independent of maybe you need very small processing, that is the smart things like your wristwatch, or maybe you need very, very high processing. It could mean smart meters or three-phase meters and so on. Similarly, with respect to security, sensing, all these requirements may vary. The good point is that the requirements vary, but these requirements remain constant. That means you would need processing, security, sensing, connectivity, whether it is smart things, smart home or city, or smart industry. And when I say these are the three points, essentially, when we talk of IoT, we are talking of some segments, and these are the most famous segments as of now. So if that be the case, we say that no matter if the form factor of the device is small or more, security requirement is less or more, their requirements are same. If that be the case, from the point of view of a semiconductor company, it means a lot that we address it in a specific manner. And that is how I will now speak as to how we are addressing this aspect. So in order to address the IoT needs, which I said as before, that these remain common, even if the form factor changes, there are certain hardware building blocks, pre-integrated software solutions, and then some development tools. So we have addressed these requirements through these three strategies and how these strategies combine. What we have done is we have created a environment, what we call as STM32 Open Development Environment. Just a comment, STM32 is our famous microcontroller, which is 32-bit. We made a choice more than 15 years ago to base our microcontroller family on the ARM Cortex series, and that has paid us well. In fact, we were one of the biggest companies to adopt the ARM, and this ARM system, it became all pervasive later. We were one of the first big companies, and that has helped us, that has helped ARM, and we are proud of that. Now, if you go back in the history, maybe 15, 20 years ago, there was this new concept called Arduino, and that was very, very famous. And the concept of Arduino was that you can have a base board, call it motherboard, and then you go on building what used to be called as extension boards or daughter cards or shields, in fact. What we did not want to go in the same direction, but we wanted to do something more. So what you see in the picture is a board like this, looks white. We call this board as Nucleo. So what it consists is, it's one of the microcontroller like STM32. Again, a comment, STM32, when we say it looks like one part, but it is having more than 1,000 active parts. So you can have maybe a family, one family member on such a whiteboard. It can be, let's say, with certain memory, certain functionality, certain MIPS, and so on. But then on top, there are some boards which appear like this. So one of these boards could be for display, another one could be for motor control. And good point is that you have this kind of connector that leaves the space to put another board on top of this in a very, very seamless manner. So you can go on stacking the boards. So if this is quite easy, that means stacking the board is easy. You already have two, you can place third, and yet you would have place for fourth and so on. So this is the modular approach for what concerns hardware. If hardware can be stacked like this, can software be combined in the same manner. This is what we attempted. And in fact, what we have is that we have software, which is STM32 nucleo expansion development board, and then corresponding to each of the expansion board, we have the relevant expansion software. Now, there can be a situation that you have a microcontroller. Remember that in the IoT system, we said that we have sensors, we have controllers, we have security, we have communication, and we have power management. So those things remain same. So imagine for a moment that this whiteboard is what corresponds to processing part. And each of these boards could be independent sensors. If that be the case, there could be a situation that you are having sensors on one board, connectivity on another one. And that means with the combination of few boards, you are actually able to connect to either your home gateway or perhaps directly to the cloud, depending on the context. If that be the case, there should be some way that you are able to combine not only the boards like this, but also the software, and this is enabled. And what we have as STM32 Cube. So depending on the board that is available, you can choose into the IDE, which is development environment, and you can go on selecting the software in as easy manner as you connect the hardware. If that be the case, you would have a situation that you have a stack of boards and you can have the stack of software. And if this stack is something which is very commonly used, we call it a function pack. Function pack is something which is very, very optimized for those combination of boards. If that be the case, you get a system in, I don't want to sell anything here, but let's say less than $100, a series of boards that is ready to run. And what is the difference with respect to rest of the market? It is ready to run not only with the free IDE that ST provides, but also with Kyle, with the few other, let's say, tool chains like IAR and so on. And each of the board, each is tested and it is guaranteed to work for the first time. If that be the case, maybe things seem to be very easy. And I can say that it is like laying the road. Things are really easy. What is difficult is to look at the use case. In fact, the real creativity lies in determining the use case in terms of building blocks, be it hardware or software. We have done enough as some other companies. And with that, you can get started with the proof of concept in the matter of days or perhaps weeks. If that is the case, the IoT development has really been made very, very easy, very, very simple. Really, the focus remains the use case. Now I go fast. If we don't need maybe so many boards, probably it is much more useful that we should have a single board like this, which has the function of sensing and then connectivity all onto one. This is possible. And sometimes you may have the requirement that maybe even this size is big. You would like something which is comparatively as small or as big as this one, and it has all these functions. It is, we call this as sensor tile board, and it is IoT Design Lab on the tip of the pencil. It is like 1.5 centimeter by 1.5 centimeter approximately. That is the size. Good point is, an important point is that these boards, if these are having RF parts, these are FCC certified as well, FCC CE as the case may be. And this is very, very important for the developers. You would appreciate that anytime you have to develop an RF board, it requires elaborate certification, and that's not an easy job. And in fact, I don't want to say that it is very tough job also. The point is that if your volumes are less, it makes sense to go with the pre-integrated, pre-certified board rather than spending your energy on this aspect. Moving on, and this is a very important aspect, and that is about security. When you talk of IoT devices, you are talking of connecting these devices to the cloud. If you are connecting your devices to the cloud, there are multiple hops in between. You need to connect the nodes to the gateways and gateways to the cloud. So what happens on air is one situation, but what happens on the board, on the devices, is something that is very, very important. And we as ST, we provide this security, this guarantee in our devices. As an example, we have STM32 Trust, and this provides many of these functions that you can see. So there is a secure boot. There is, I want to highlight few things. One is secure manufacturing. What does it mean? Imagine that you have now developed a use case, and what you need to do when you scale, you have to send it for mass production. When you send it for mass production, the firmware upgrade is not in your control. A firmware upgrade is not in your control. How do you ensure that the third party which is manufacturing on your behalf does not tamper with the firmware file that you have given. There are now tools with us, thanks to this STM32 security or the trust function, that no one can tamper even when you have outsourced the production. And same thing is true when you have to upgrade the firmware if that is the need. What is very important is that the IoT devices are not very costly. Let's take the example of a bulb. If bulb is an IoT device, which it can be, like you have Philips Hue and so on, what happens after the bulb stops working? The usual tendency is, not only usual tendency, the requirement is that you have to anyway put it into the garbage somehow. And if that be the case, it becomes a very interesting piece for hackers. And in fact, hackers need not worry about the fused bulb, only they can even buy it. So if they buy it, they have the access to the device. How do you ensure that a hacker is not able to hack the code, even if he has the access to device? We ensure this thanks to these functions, and we are one of the few such companies, and it is an important point, particularly with respect to what happens in the manufacturing and for the firmware upgrade. And this is a very, very important aspect for the healthcare, because you have to secure privacy. You have to ensure that your data goes only into the hands that you want it to go to. Well, this is the summary of then our complete ecosystem for IoT. We have these boards, which we call as stackable boards, and then corresponding modular software. We have form factor boards. Then there is a pre-integrated software for vertical applications, what we call as even function pack for some cases. And then, of course, we provide the native integration with the cloud. That means these boards are ready to be connected to the cloud, to AWS or Azure, depending on the context. And finally, there is something more important, which is about the partner program and ST community. As ST, we remain the devices company. And when we have to build the systems, there are partners who are developing the software, who are developing hardware, who have deep expertise in certain areas. We have this partner program and community that continues to grow. So this is 3:30. And with that, I kind of conclude the first section. And here the key point I want to say is that device prototyping to final device is a journey that seems like fairly simple with respect to what we are providing, but there is a catch over here. In the end, if you have to create a wristwatch for maybe fitness or a fitness watch, you can prove this function with so many boards, but would you wear this? And that brings you to the second point, the form factor. You have to reduce the form factor. And the moment you have to reduce form factor, this is the challenge that starts, because until now, we said that hardware is given to you, but now hardware is not given. When you are competing in the market, you are not competing for the boards, you are competing for the form factor, for its looks, for its reliability, for its certification, and so on. And this starts to become a challenge. Many startup companies, many small companies, they do not focus much or underestimate, or maybe do not have the resources since the beginning, assuming that hardware is something that is given. It is unfortunately not. And this is something that I want to share my experience with the startups, if they are there in this call, that this is one mistake, and we are very, very nice in terms of proof of concept, but somehow we do not reach the market, and this is the problem, and this is the gap. So journey from device to form factor to final device is actually a hardware journey, and that determines whether you succeed or not. I can say with confidence that software remains the same. So if you prove that this is your pedometer, the same software would remain there, because you can have the same microcontroller or same one from the STM32 family, it will work. But the form factor is something that you have to take care, and this is something that is underestimated challenge by most people, at least in India, for what I know. I do not know if there are questions at this stage. I don't know how to see the chat now. Are there any questions in the chat?
No, so we have not received any questions as of now.
Perfect. Thank you. So I continue to the second section, and that is the key section of today's presentation. It's about digital healthcare. Well, talking of digital healthcare, what does it mean? There are three sections that we can think of digital healthcare. One is the digital well-being. That means it's like I was giving the example of pedometer. It's like it doesn't require any clinical validation. The other is digital medicine, which requires some clinical evidence. And the third one is the really serious one, which is therapeutics. And here it requires the real world outcomes. So as an organization, of course, we provide various elements, various sensors. In fact, I can also say that what concerns journey from IoT to healthcare, it is journey of adopting different kind of sensors. Same thing, remember IoT, 5 things: sensors, connectivity, then we have the processing, then we have security, and then we have power management. So it is the changing the game of the sensor, and then of course taking care of the final product. As I said before, the journey is same, and hence IoT and digital healthcare are very, very closely coupled to each other. Key point over here is that actors from digital well-being to digital medicine and the final one, they go on changing. For example, we have something called as CRO, which is called contract research organizations or clinical research organizations. We would never, as ST, enter this field, but we would always enable them in the value chain. This is our value proposition. As ST, we are devices company, we are the silicon provider, we are here, but we enable each of the element, yet we do not sell any of these systems in the end. Another point, I talked of 3-4 boards being available for less than $100. Selling the board is not the focus business. That is only the enablement tool, as you can imagine. All right, so what all our devices can support you in healthcare? So we have the sensors for imaging, for ultrasound, energy harvesting, and so on. And based on this, we have enabled several of our partners, and we would see some of the applications in the later slides. This is important that we have sensors, we have IoT, and based on this, we are able to, our partners are able to build the value-added services, particularly those related to data and communication. So let's look at this. So we have the data source, and from the data source, you process it. You process it depending on if you want to only detect the event or you want to detect the context. And this is the important segmentation over here. You can have two choices. You send all the kind of sensor data to the cloud, and then you process at the cloud. The other is that maybe you can make some local sense, and that is the context information. Call it AI or call it the local intelligence or local intelligence at the edge. So you can decide. I mean, you would have the some description in the later slides, but what it means is that you can send everything either to the gateway to allow it to analyze, or you can have something which is done locally as well. This depends on the context. And the healthcare gateway and healthcare cloud, this is the domain where the value added services from the partners actually get added. And this is where the most money is. And this is a little unfortunate, but this is true. We are the devices company, but recurring money is on the services part. There is something very interesting about the sensors. So of course, this slide shows that where you could have various kind of sensors. We understand accelerometer, altimeter, GPS, microphone, and so on. Based on a combination of these sensors, actually, there is something very, very interesting. You could determine the signature of a person, maybe starting from his birth or starting anytime. Those signatures could be about his or her language speaking, the way he or she responds to various sensors, mobility, behavior, and even cognitive. If someone could find these signatures, and these signatures could be compared over time, and if there is any change that happens in the signatures, the person could be alerted. This is quite like or an equivalent to what we call as predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance or preventive maintenance is something that we use in the context of industry or in the context of machinery. Pretty much a human being can be thought as a machinery with certain signature. So if you are healthy, you have certain kind of signature. If that signature starts to change, that's the first thing that's kind of alerting you that something is changing. And very often it is observed that this signature could change even without you knowing it. And there are some case studies, there are some instances. I wouldn't name the companies which are using such products, but the internet is full of such stories that someone was alerted by his or her watch, and it seemed like it was an aberration. But when he or she got tested, it was found that some parameters were actually out of the order. So you see this deterministic behavior, that you get alert even when you otherwise don't feel it. That is the best thing in terms of the digital healthcare or preventive maintenance of your body, of yourself. And these changes, they play a really key role in the early diagnostic. And I want to just make a statement over here. If this be the case, at least in a country like India or anywhere in the world, you could have some companies which could start earning on this kind of business model. Maybe this is there. I know in bits and pieces that there would be some watch, or there would be some independent, let's say ECG monitor or independent blood pressure monitor, but there is no an integrated system. And if I were to visualize, I think a protocol like Bluetooth Low Energy is ideal protocol that can give you the security of your home. That means you don't need to send everything onto the cloud. You can have a local gateway of your own, and you could have everything in your home, which kind of alerts you for further investigation, because here we are not recommending that you depend your entire decision on what is being told by the consumer level devices. No, but these consumer level devices can tell you to go to certain hospital under certain conditions without you realizing it. And I think there is a business case here. If there are some startups, we could discuss these ideas. As I said before, as ST, we can only enable. All right. Then there are some challenges. It looks like it's a very simple situation, but there are some challenges. And what are the challenges? We say that if there is a large amount of data, you send to cloud. But sometimes there are issues of privacy, there are issues of security. Maybe you would like something is done locally only. I don't want to send everything to the cloud, for the reasons of privacy, for the reason of even bandwidth, and why would I like to send everything? If that be the case, you can have something which is done locally, and that is called smartness at the edge. And sometimes it is needed. Why it is needed? Imagine that it's an elderly person somehow starts to fall. Now, the help should not come from cloud. There should be some instant motor action that kind of helps you to stay vertical, or whatever is the problem that is being caused. So these kind of decisions where you need instant motor reaction have to happen locally. And of course, there are situations that despite this motor assistance, maybe you would still fall. If that happens to be the case, there has to be a data that goes to the cloud, and then relevant ambulance and other things are called in. So this is a key aspect. And as an organization, we cannot suggest if edge computing is better or cloud computing is better. That depends on the use case that will be determined by the partners. But as a company, we provide support for both. Well, let me move to the next section. And
Hi, Manoj, your voice is not audible by some people. So if you could kindly recheck once. Thank you.
Oh.
No, we can hear you, sir. I think there's a problem with them. We can hear you.
I will, however, try to be louder, Nidhi. So. Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions at this stage?
No, as of now, we don't have any questions. Probably we'll take it up in the end, sir.
No problem. So let's go to some examples of some end devices which are powered by ST. Again, a remark that we are only providing the semiconductor solutions for enablement. All right. So let's look at some application which is for contact tracing and social distancing. This became a hit, particularly in the COVID times. So what it means is that if there is someone who is coming close to me, I should be alerted. So now there are two ways. Maybe when you are not able to see if someone is coming from the behind, you should be able to get an alert. And this could happen through various means. One of them is actually the social distancing, if you could get some kind of alert on a wearable device. And this is interesting use case. Again, this is another interesting use case. You don't need send this information to the cloud first. You must get the local information. And if that be the case, you could enable these kind of devices, which is peer-to-peer connection. And every device kind of detects for the presence of another device nearby. And then based on certain algorithms, you can determine the distance and you can make an alert. It can be beep, it can be vibration, depending on how it has been designed. And this principle has been used by this company, and there are now wristbands that are being used in certain factories already, where people are alerted as long as or as soon as they come in the vicinity of each other. So this is really something, in case you can calibrate it to be 3 meters or 2 meters, but there won't be any havoc if instead of 2, it alerts at 1.8 or 2.2. So this is one level of understanding that this is really about alerting, and no big harm is happening if it is violated. Now let's go to something more interesting. So this device was awarded as the Pharma Award in 2017, and this happens to be one of our partner companies. Again, I want to say that there are, of course, many products that you can imagine which are enabled by ST devices. What I am showing over here is something that we can show based on the consent that we have from the partners. So what is this device? This is an interesting device. Imagine that you have different kinds of vials now. So you have to mix the fluids or solids or the powders in different amounts. So the injection must have certain percentage of various kind of fluids or powders and so on. So these formulations have to be given in the right proportion only. So this device takes care of mixing those proportions. And of course, you cannot have these devices which are independent of the pharma companies, because this is meant for certain kind of pharma vials and so on. But this would ensure that there is no difference in the ratio of the components, besides the fact that it will take care that even if the liquid is of, let's say, high viscosity or powder is of certain thing, it will take care that the mixing happens in the proper manner. As ST, we have our microcontrollers into this, but also the motor control to drive blending of it. It's quite like a coffee vending machine. If you want, you have to have milk, you have to have coffee, you have to have water and so on, and at the right temperature and so on. It's pretty much so, except that it is not something which is quite like coffee. It has to go inside your body. So it takes care at that level, and it is a certified product, of course. Another one, let's move into something more complex. You know that when we talk of heart and so on, we talk that there should be wireless signals are kind of interrupting with your heart, but there are no wireless devices which actually do not interrupt, because there is certain interruption that heart can bear, and there are no certificates which are provided. Life Signals is one such company that was working with the ST, or that is working with the ST, and they created this kind of patch which is having two purposes. It is having a radio, and it is having certain, let's say, monitoring devices within it. And you can see that, and this is an important point, that they are working with us, but not only us. If they have to create this kind of patch, that should be medical grade. They have to work with some partner which is able to make this kind of medical grade material also. And they partnered with 3M. So 3M on one side, ST on another side for what can be for SOC, and their own IP, which will take care of this holter or this patch arrangement. And this product is now certified to be of medical grade. So what it means is that you go to a hospital, maybe the doctor is prescribing that you can go home, but you need to wear this patch here for next 3 days. And for next 3 days, it can store data locally, or it can go to the doctor and doctor can advise you, and doctor can even see if there is some trouble to you, he can monitor by itself. So you see, the entire system is enabled through partnerships. Let me go to the right side, and I will spend some more time on the RTP or the qPCR a little later. Only thing is that just see, the shape looks like mouse, because later on we would see some comment that there is a mouse by Alifex, and this would be the mouse that we would be referring to. Moving on, I was mentioning this already, that Life Signals, which is a US based company, but very sizable presence in Bangalore also. So our company had an agreement with them, or vice versa, to design this thing, and now they are already into the market. Again, the point over here is that we are providing the silicon level expertise to them. Then, depending on this context, you can have the patch, and this patch can tell you something locally, can tell something to your doctor, and there can be some other cloud functions in between. Maybe there is a sudden fall that is detected, so the ambulance could come by itself without you calling it. Or maybe you are in a condition that you can't call the ambulance, but ambulance would arrive because there are sensors which have informed the ambulance, because now these sensors are tagged to you, doctor has given to you, hospital has given to you. And another point, you know that many times there are consumer grade devices and hospital doesn't accept those records. In this case, this is a seamless device. It will work on you at your home, but the records would be accepted by the hospital also. So that means it's now starting to be at medical grade. Look at the combination. We as ST, we are providing the silicon expertise. This device expertise is owned by another company, and then by some hospitals. And this is a value chain that we kind of need to keep in mind for all the examples that we'll be following as well. Of course, this is something that we in India would understand very well and very easily perhaps, and it is about the remote monitoring software. And key point over here is that the value added services are actually coming from this domain. So all the hard work is done by the hard devices, but in the end, what matters to the consumer, the experience comes from the remote monitoring software side, be it sending the ambulance or doctor calling you and you feeling very, very privileged that, I mean, doctor was very, very attentive. Maybe it was the device that was attentive and doctor only got activated on what device told him. All right. I move to the even more complex section for the medical applications now. Again, this is only to inform the audience about the various types of sensors that ST has, and in no way it means that these can be, let's say, shared. I mean, some of the information about the remaining slides in this section is available only under certain NDAs, but it is just to share some of the information about the technologies that are helping the healthcare devices. Let's look at the qPCR or the rapid DNA testing. So we have this interesting solution. And what is there is, it is called lab on chip. So it is having some kind of well where picoliter of fluid. And in case of qPCR, the fluid happens to be blood, it can go. And then there are certain heaters. There are profiles that the heating has to happen in so many microseconds or milliseconds or duration. And if the results are received in certain manner, you are able to detect if the blood is having let's say COVID or not, as an example, but not only COVID, but these days COVID is more famous, so we talk of COVID. And these curves over a period of time, maybe 20 to 25 minutes, are able to tell if the result is corresponding to having certain kind of detection in the blood or not. And as ST, we provide this LOC, which is disposable lab on chip, and this kind of instrument through the partner, and this software is from third parties. Again, why I'm providing this information, that healthcare is such a complex subject that when you start from, let's say, consumer devices to medical devices, there is a complexity. There are partners involved, and partners are involved because they have expertise, and there are, let's say, certifications that have to be met. Okay, then this story goes on. Of course, it only means that how it happens. You take the sample, how you prepare the sample, and then there is a certain, let's say, pre-functional LOC, which means that each of the well is having certain chemical compound already, and this reaction is observed with respect to the temperature variations on the higher side and the lower side, and then these results would indicate if the person should be seeking further care or not. Another view that to be able to achieve such a complex thing, you have to have the multidisciplinary competencies within and outside. Of course, even before we seek partners for this, I want to inform that we have a team of biological, optical, mechanical, electronic, and software professionals who are working to kind of bring such solutions to the market. And again, these solutions do not belong to us. I have to emphasize this point again and again, because I cannot handle the question if this qPCR is available. It's available, yes, under certain NDAs. All right. And this is one of the company, which is one of the first, Alifex in Italy, which have this certified now CE molecular mouse. I was referring to this. It is nothing but the Q3 platform that I was showing before. And it is disposable test cartridges, that is lab on chip, and assays are available from them. All right. Then there is something more, and it is about MEMS. So in MEMS, we have the MEMS sensors, but also actuators. And actuators actually start to become, give very, very interesting role when it comes to the healthcare part of it. Let's see a few of them. Let's look at this example. We have seen that there is time of flight sensor, which is like redirection. But there is also something more, that each one of us, when I'm speaking, when I'm moving my hand, actually I'm changing the electric field around me. I'm interacting with the electric field around me. I'm interfering with it, and it is changing. Now we are having certain engines. We call them QVAR, which is electric charge, that it can detect the variations in the movement of the body. For example, when you walk and you're let's say closer to the floor, there is a change in the field, and this change can be detected. If this be the case, you are able to detect many things. So if you have this QAR integrated with the motion MEMS are like your accelerometer and gyroscopes, you can detect the presence. You can have the proximity sensor. Earlier we were talking about proximity check in another sense. But likewise, if there is a pressure sensor, you can have another kind of sensors. And again, these are at the technology level. The technology comes to the products will come to the systems, and systems will bring experience to the user through the software in between. That's the value chain. Another something very, very interesting. In our MEMS portfolio, we have what is called as pico projectors, but then there is also this laser beam scanning. So you can have series of micro mirrors, if you want to call them, but MEMS based micro mirrors, which can project the light in certain manner. And here you see what is happening over here is this light is being projected, or maybe on the left side, onto the hand. And what is happening, that you are able to see the veins. So what is the property over here, that certain kind of IR or certain kind of the laser lights would be more absorbed by the veins which are carrying the blood. If that be the case, a technician is able to determine where the veins are, and then the chance of false call it injection are minimized. And that's another interesting phenomena. It is enabled by MEMS. You see how the technology enables the products. Another something very interesting, and it is about microfluidic. You see that there are different kinds of diseases, and sometimes we have to use the nebulizers. But now the structure of the heart or the structure of arteries is such that if you have to reach the, let's say, final levels, I mean, you could have the vapors reaching here only if there maybe the diameter is in the range of 2 micrometers. But if something has to reach here, how do you create a vapor which is really 2 micrometer in the size? And this is again taken care by the MEMS. They will be able to create the vapors which are controlled in the diameter. If this diameter is controlled and you are simply inhaling it, it will reach those parts. Otherwise, if the vapor size is not there, maybe you have infection in this area, but the vapor is stopped only here. You see how the technology helps in creating these systems. Again, this is about the technology. This is about MEMS. This is about the demonstrators. Products have to be made by the partners. Likewise, there is this audio-based what we call as micro-machined ultrasonic transducers, which are useful in machinery, in nuts and bolts, but also to have very, very localized ECGs, if you want, or equivalents of that. This is thanks to MEMS, thanks to the technologies that we have in our portfolio. Any questions at this stage? Otherwise, I am pretty much at the last section of my presentation.
Yeah, we'll take it up at the last, sir.
All right. So final thoughts on the collaboration. As I said, it looks like that IoT is very easy. So you can put such boards. A single person probably can make IoT system, and it looks like yes, he can. But then why we work with such big projects, so many universities and so on? Here, the key idea over here is that no person, no company standalone is sufficient in the value chain. So there are big research institutions, you partner with them, you know their experience, and that is how you are able to tackle the bigger problems in the society. As an example, Active Age is about aging population in Europe. So when you talk of aging population of Europe, it is not related to one country, one district or few countries. It is related to Europe. In fact, there are several countries which participated in this. And as a company, of course, we remain the semiconductor company, but we got to know what is the behavior of the aging population. what are their expectations. And then some 5 or 7 use cases were created, and we were one of the key partners in this Europe-wide large-scale pilot, which went on for 4 years, and that has actually given many use cases as to how the people have to be assisted, the elderly people when they are indoor, when they are outdoor, what is their behavior when they are indoor, outdoor, or in certain other settings, so that if they need assistance, how this assistance could be provided either at the edge itself or through the cloud. Again, one last or the only video that I have over here is this one, and let me play this and then I would comment on this. So this is, does it play? It doesn't play. Okay, so if you hear voice, it is good. And if you understand, it is Italian. If not, look at the subtitles. So it is indoor environment.
Alexa, chiedi ad Alba di portarmi al piano terra.
You're talking of Alexa, so you're talking of Amazon. You are able to go to the walls, you are able to go into the lift. So maybe there is a lift manufacturer.
Alexa,
and then
chiedi ad Alba di portarmi in sala caffè.
The direction was, the voice control was that go cafe, here cafe on first floor, there is a lift in between. Why I showed this? Looks like we can do this kind of project all alone, but we partnered with so many people. And why? I want to highlight this aspect. Amazon, for the real reason of Alexa. Moschini, this is the coffee maker, but also Otis, this is the elevator company. And why it is necessary? Imagine that today my wheelchair that I designed for indoor usage is working, but Otis suddenly they change their own firmware for the lift, and the lift starts to behave in a different manner. Do I know it? I won't know if I don't partner with them. Hence, it's very important to partner with so many people, and this is the key aspect that I wanted to highlight in the context of my presentation also. I go to the last section, which is to inform as to what all we are doing in India and what all we can do with you. This is about Tech Connect. Tech Connect is a local initiative where we are having several technical initiatives under our umbrella. We have a full exhibition center where we have the devices which are made by us, but also by the rest of our company. We display them in a manner that we are able to give the IoT, smart city, smart home experience, including the connectivity, including the smart city experiences is what we are able to give. And also we have something called as startup labs as an extension to this. And in the startup lab, we provide the space to the incubators. Of course, we do shortlist their ideas. And so far, we never advertised about it. And we believe that we should be collaborating with more incubators in the country, besides the fact that we have our own incubation center. Another few things, we have this connection with the universities or other industries. And we have a program for interns, like their innovative ideas, and their innovative ideas we can incubate. And finally, we have upcoming Fab Lab. We will have our own Fab Lab, 3D printers and everything. That is something that we are creating. And we have several mentors from ST who are available to guide you, to help you, and to understand and to work with you. And we aim to make ST India as hub of innovations. I go fast here because this may not be easily understood by everyone. I spoke about Da Vinci already. And finally, if I were to summarize the takeaways of today's presentation for what concerns IoT, IoT has sensing, computing, and you remember that I said the 5 elements many times during my presentation. And for each of the element, we have the expertise in terms of products, but also we have the building blocks. Building blocks as in hardware and also software. Key point I highlighted earlier was that the prototype to end system journey, it requires several partners coming together, as also the important element that software is something that is complex, but we help a lot in that, and that remains the same. But hardware is something that makes the difference if you succeed in the market or not. This is a key point I want to make, particularly to those who may be looking at creating the startups. And finally, for what concerns to the digital healthcare, there is innovation in sensors and processing that is happening. I talked of several sensors, pico projectors, then PMUT, and so on. And in fact, another point that I made, that for the IoT value chain, except for the sensors, it remains the same. Despite the fact that when we talk of IoT, we send the data to the cloud, there are reasons that maybe some decisions have to happen locally only. And that means that the decision should be accurate, and also they should be prompt enough. So you can send all the data to the cloud, or you can just send the contextual information depending on if your local node is allowing this processing or not. And for what concerns ST, we collaborate with the different partners in multiple different ways. And we are certainly very open to collaborate with you in India as well. And that's pretty much what I had to say. Thank you for your attention and attendance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for an interesting session. Attendees, we just wanted to check with you, like if you have any questions for Dr. Manoj.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Tony here, Manoj. Excellent presentation. I just had one question on the AccuVein. Okay, so in fact, we had a call for application for a specific product which can detect the veins, and we are planning to have a custom cohort for our next grant. So just wanted to check, is there some details which can be shared on the AccuVein concept or the micro mirror projection, right? That's something which we are very keen to know more. And there is a hospital who is interested in collaborating on this development for something which is accessible for an emerging market like India. So if you can share more details offline, that will be really helpful.
So you said the two things. One is this, or maybe it is with respect to AccuVein concept only.
Exactly, yes.
Well, I think what I can say here is that you could certainly write details to us.
Sure, yeah.
Then, because these are certain technologies that some products are available as standalone products for sure. For that, we would be more than glad to provide you the data sheet. And should there be something that is confidential, we can discuss those things also.
Sure. Thanks. That will be really helpful.
And may I know who was asking this question? I want to write your name.
This is Tony Francis.
Tony. Thanks, Tony. And my mail ID is manoj.kumar@st.com. You could write, and
sure, yeah.
whatever I can help. As I said, that few things are under some
NDAs, right?
Some NDAs, but NDA is meant to enable the business in the end. So NDA is not to say no, it is just to say that we share the information, but with certain riders.
Great, yeah. And second, just one more thing. You did mention that a Fab Lab is coming. Can you just give a peek of, if we want to just see some of these upcoming products, right? Is there a place that startups can visit and just play around for a day and give it back? Is that going to be the intent of this Fab Lab?
Well, it is going to be more than that, because for what concerns the startups, we already have a place since last 4 years, by the way. Dedicated place, dedicated space. We provide them access to equipment, to our facilities, but more than that, we don't believe that having seats which are same seats as ours, but free, that's not a big motivation. I think the bigger motivation is availability of the mentors, availability of the people who understand the technology, can discuss with you your schematic, your algorithm. Of course, that is something that is, you cannot assign a cost to that. For other things, you can assign cost for facilities. Yeah. We believe that is the biggest thing. That is a differentiator in our model.
Got it, yeah.
But your question, coming to ST and visiting, we provide this kind of opportunity to all our partners without limit.
Great, okay.
Just to add, Tony, we are more like knowledge partners, and we have experts like Manoj who are trained, 30 years of experience, domain experience. So more than anything more than financial, we are offering our subject matter expertise, our time of our experts, and our all the technical support for the startup. So that is main focus of what Manoj is leading in India.
Oh, great, great. Yeah.
You could, I have typed Manoj's email ID. If anybody wants to reach out to him, he could drop
great.
in a mail.
Great, great.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you, Tony. So thank you. So any other questions, attendees?
Hello, sir. Thank you for your presentation. I'm Arshad here from Poison Technologies. We are developing some tools, innovative tools, and we are planning to do that in IoT level. Can you, I just ended in the middle of the meeting. I'm very much sorry for that. Can you? I just find that like in the last that you are giving something like support, for the startups. So how we can get collaborate with you, to complete that our vision, that incorporating
It's pretty simple. I mean, we can set up a call and we can understand the details. It's pretty simple, not big formalities to understand if that model will be useful for you or not.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, usually speaking, if I were to just add one dimension, what would be our parameters? I mean, we are a semiconductor company, yet we are a business enterprise. So our idea would be, if your idea is something that would be around the products that we have, if that is the case, and you really need, I mean, there are two levels of support. One is that you just need some kind of simple understanding of our products. You don't need to be incubated. This kind of support is provided. We end up helping universities, their PhD students, besides others. So if this kind of occasional help is something that you need, you don't even need to enter into an agreement or to have startup with us. That's a simple thing. But if it is something that requires a little bit more serious effort from both the sides, then we discuss the other model.
Yes, sir. Actually, we are planning like to do that in an international level market. That we were actually we want to compare our results between our buyers. They must receive an accurate result of what they are doing. So we are doing like that. Yeah.
Oh, this is wonderful idea, and I really don't want to say too many things, but we do have another program called Partner Program, which kind of gives you international visibility through our own website as well. Of course, you need to be at certain level to be incubated into that, and that's our global program, and that's another aspect that all the people in this call are welcome to think about.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, attendees?
Thank you, Nidhi. You provided the link to partner program already.
If anybody has a question, we can take up one last question. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being here with us. So probably in case if there's any questions, if somebody drops a mail to us, we'll connect you to them. I'll also share your email ID and details to our participants who have joined. Participants, before we wind up for today's session, can we just switch on your video so that we could have a group pic?
Good idea, Pavani.
Yeah, so I request everyone to switch on your cameras so that we could have a group pic.
I request our ST colleagues to also join and switch on their videos. We have a lot of support and colleagues who are listening to this wonderful video session by Manoj. So please also join us and switch on your videos.
Thank you everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Pavani. Thank you, Dr. Manoj.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. Thank you, Nidhi, and thank you, Mouser team, for making this Tech Talk Series 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Avinash, and thank you to Saraswati virtually.
Thank you.
I would convey the same. See you, sir. See you, Nidhi.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.